Hi, I'm Annie. Today I want to talk about legacy and ancestry. I've heard a lot of people in the personality type community talk about being interested in legacy or being more interested in ancestry, and I feel pretty neutral about both of those things, and I'm not really sure why. And to the extent that this relates to personality type at all, I'll just throw in my official objective personality typing here. It seems like legacy in particular is really important to a lot of people, and I'm not completely sure why it isn't important to me, but I'm just gonna explore that a little bit. I've even heard people make blanket statements. I can't remember verbatim, but I think Dave Superpowers said one time something to the effect of everyone wants to leave some sort of lasting legacy. I just don't really feel that way, so I'm not sure if I'm really in the minority on that issue or if there are more people like me that don't really think about it. I don't know. So I don't really strive to make a lasting impression on the world. I don't really think about that at all. I'm only thinking about it now because I'm making this video and because I've heard so many people talk about how important it is to them, and I've started to wonder why it's not important to me. So it isn't important to me to create something that will be here in, say, 100 years. Though I probably have, because garbage. Garbage will probably be here in 100 years, and I've created an awful lot of that. Plastic just doesn't break down very quickly. But on a more pleasant note, I've created nice things that will likely be around in 100 years. I've created a lot of ceramics, and I'm sure some of those things have been broken and some of them will be broken, but some of them will still be around and probably will even be in use in 100 years. These are functional items that aren't going to biodegrade easily. But this is literally the first time I'm ever considering that. I don't really think about it when I'm making things. One time I was driving to my office in downtown Eugene. There was a woman at the bus stop and she was wearing a dress that I made. And I knew that it had to be the dress that I made because this was a one-of-a-kind thing. I really like the dress, but I donated it to Goodwill because it was something I made when I was learning how to sew, and the fabric that I chose was very inexpensive. Because when I was learning sewing, I was sort of afraid to use really expensive fabrics, and now I buy, silk dupioni and all kinds of really luscious, wonderful things that are kind of expensive and kind of intimidating for a beginner to work with. So anyway, girl at the bus stop wearing this dress I made. It was one of the most magical moments of my life. I mean, it was, well, that's a little extreme. I don't know, it was memorable. It's just like a little thing that was really sweet that made me feel good. And it was totally unexpected. But, I don't expect that dress to make a lasting impression on the world. It's just, something I made and sent out into the world and somebody appreciates it. And there are a lot of things like that because I have an Etsy store. I sell art, I sell and create things, and people, for whatever reason, like them and want to buy them. And so those things are, all over the world in people's homes, and that's kind of cool. It occurs to me now, though, that all of the things I just mentioned were really like sensory things. And so if we're talking more about a legacy of concepts, I love concepts. I love sharing perspectives and ideas, but I don't expect to come up with a new concept that's going to be like new to the world that nobody's ever heard before. I don't think that my mind is really capable of that. I do get a lot of satisfaction out of sharing concepts with people in a way that helps them. And I see this a lot with my clients. If I'm working with a client that's struggling with a specific issue and it's something that I have more experience in and I feel more comfortable with the issue, I get a lot of satisfaction out of helping them to change their perception of the issue, think about solutions, and kind of come at it from a different angle. So any conversation that I have with anyone or any concept that I share with anyone could have a really big impact on the world. But that's really true for anybody. Anybody having any conversation with someone else could have very small or very large lasting consequences. You just don't know. And that's because everything and everybody is connected. I could share something with somebody who really needs to learn that. They really need to learn that lesson, and that could affect their life, which in turn, affects something else, and maybe they go on to write the great American novel because of, some conversation that we had. That's possible. It's just as possible for that interaction to happen with me as it is for anyone else. So I don't really think about that. I do get a lot of satisfaction when people tell me that I've helped them to see something from a different perspective or understand something in a new way that really helps them in their life. But that's something that I think about that sort of is within my lifetime. It doesn't really extend, beyond my life. I don't really think about who will be at my funeral or who will remember me when I die. It's just not something that I think about. Or what will they say about me at my funeral? I hope they're honest. Like, wow, what a mess. I'm a lot of things. I'm good things and bad things. If you're going to say anything at my funeral, don't hold back. Now, I have thought about the fact that I'm not interested in legacy, and I also don't want to have children. And part of me kind of has wondered if I have some genetic pre-programming to not be interested in legacy and not be interested in having children because evolution is ready for me to end. That I shouldn't go on or continue genetically or conceptually or in any way because evolution just, wants to keep improving and I'm the end of the line. I don't know. And if that's true, it doesn't really bother me. I don't know. To me, life is just an ephemeral thing. I'm just here experiencing now and I don't really think a lot about what I'm leaving behind. I mean, I don't want to trash the world, the trash that I mentioned before, the plastic that doesn't, break down in hundreds of years. That's concerning to me. I don't want that. So I guess maybe ancestry is a little bit more interesting to me than legacy, but even then, it's more like just history that I'm interested in because I don't really care if the person from the past that I find interesting is personally related to me. So things that I find interesting, on the one hand, really mundane things. Say there's a woman on a homestead 150 years ago, just going about her daily life, doing the chores. I would like to see how she completes the chores. What is the order of operations in that world where, technology is limited? They didn't have the same creature comforts and conveniences that we have now. What was her day like? What time did she wake up? And what did she do first? And what was the process of getting breakfast on the table and milking the cows and, gathering more supplies? That's kind of interesting to me because we have so many modern conveniences. It would just be interesting to be like a fly on the wall and just see how people went about their daily lives and did the mundane things. But what's even more interesting to me than that is like if I found an old journal, a man or a woman from 200 years ago. That would be interesting to me, but mostly only if they were really striving to share authentically, if they were being really honest about their experience, or if they were talking about the culture of the time and human nature and philosophy and how all of that relates. That would be just as interesting to hear from someone living in that time and writing about it as it is now. Human interest things. How do people operate? What are they interested in? And particularly if they were striving to be really, really honest with themselves in their journal, then I would find that interesting. But it wouldn't really matter to me if that journal belonged to my grandmother or your grandmother. So that's not really ancestry. I mean, I'd like to be a fly on the wall to observe people from the past, but I don't know. I just think that your grandmother would be just as interesting as mine. I guess if I had a choice, maybe I would choose my ancestors first and then maybe move on and watch other people's ancestors. I'm not sure. So anyway, I only bring it up because I've heard so many people in the personality community talk about this, and I'm just curious what your thoughts are.